Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. Jose Mourinho is well renowned for his attention to detail when it comes for preparing for upcoming opponents and preparing for every possible scenario. But have you ever wondered what exactly goes into his preparation? Well, in this video, we will visualize a scout report that he and then assistant manager Andre Villas-Boas prepared ahead of the first leg of their Champions League encounter against Barcelona in 2005-06. So, let's take a look. The scout report, which is linked in the description, broke down the opponent's favoured behaviour into the 4 phases of play, which are offensive organisation, transition from offence to defence, the deep defensive organisation, and finally the defensive to offensive transition, i.e. the counter-attack. But Mourinho went a few steps further, looking at anticipated patterns of play, individual appreciation, as well as set-piece organisation. So let's look at all of this. Mourinho anticipated that Barcelona would line up in their trademark 4-3-3 with the following personnel. And in actuality, the only difference was that Thiago Motta played rather than Van Bommel. Interestingly, he had noted that if it were Van Bommel who started, Deco would move to the left of the midfield, and if it were Motta, Deco would be on the right of midfield, which would affect the midfield dynamic altogether. The general overview of the Barcelona offensive structure he noted was that compared to the previous season, Barcelona's transition from defense to offense was much stronger in comparison to when they had met in the prior season. He also anticipated that Barcelona was now much weaker in the first phase of play and prone to making errors here, an idea that he would look to take advantage of. However, in the final third, he said that they were deadly, but highly dependent on the individual qualities of Messi and Ronaldinho, as opposed to coordinated team play. He also noted that they tended to dive for free kicks and penalties. Mourinho stated that Barcelona could go long or short depending on the positioning of the opponent. When they went long, it would be to Eto'o or Ronaldinho, but he realized that they didn't have any runners in behind the long ball or the traits in the front line to flick the ball in behind, and as a result, he anticipated that his defenders would win all the first balls. When going short, the fullbacks tended to stay very wide to give them width on the short build-up, but Mourinho thought that this would leave the centre-backs lacking options to pass to, as this meant that the pass into the fullbacks could be easily intercepted. The build-up pattern he anticipated they would use to exit the first phase of play was for Deco to drop deep to receive the ball short and wall pass it out to Van Bronckhorst, and Ronaldinho would subsequently drift centrally. This would then allow the ball into the defensive midfielder, who could then look to organise the following phases of play. He felt the best ways to disrupt these first phases of play was targeting Oliger and Edmilson, as he deemed that they had poor notions of both time and space. But the way he wanted to press the two was even different. With Oliger, he wanted his man to pressure him whilst the ball was still travelling towards him, whereas with Edmilson, he wanted to allow Edmilson to receive the ball and have the man pressure him on the blind side as he looked to turn, which would allow Chelsea to win the ball back. But higher up the pitch, Mourinho wanted his men to pay particular attention to the relationship between Ronaldinho and Van Bronckhorst. Van Bronckhorst was comfortable underlapping when Ronaldinho stayed wide, and as a result, he would need his midfielders and the wing-back to communicate on who would pick him up. And when Ronaldinho tucked infield, he instead overlapped in a more traditional manner, and could more easily be tracked by the winger dropping deep. When he assessed the midfield, he noted that without Xavi, the team was much less controlled in possession, as Van Bommel was only capable of simple organised passes and was better using his physicality to act as a support player. This meant the creative burden was increased on Deco. Rather than immediately using penetrative passing, he preferred to dribble with the ball, which made him a potential target for pressing. But the major danger he saw from Deco was with his off-the-ball movement, particularly when Eto'o dropped deep, drawing a centre-back and leaving space in behind for Deco to attack. Moving on to the front three. Mourinho noted Ronaldinho's tendency to move infield from the left-hand side, so he wanted his defensive midfielder and fullback to communicate with each other. As if he drifted infield, he wanted Makelele to take over, as if the fullback followed, Van Bronckhorst would have too much space down the flank. He was also willing to foul the man to stop the momentum when Ronaldinho tucked infield. On the left, Messi had more freedom, often drifting across the field to create 2 versus 1s with Ronaldinho. He noted that he preferred dribbling and driving the team forward with the ball at his feet, and was willing to bring creativity and risk to the game. He he emphasized the potential use of fouls to stop Messi in his tracks. With Eto'o, he saw his off-the-ball movement as the major danger. He would often drop deep in the build-up to create space in behind and subsequently spin into that space, leaving the defender in his wake. But when the ball was on the left, Eto'o would often spin and make a circular run to the right, which would also free space for Messi to drift into the creative space, meaning that Ronaldinho had two options of who to pass to, and Eto'o was often passed to score. But what did he note of their defensive transition as soon as they lost the ball? He found Barca were most dangerous just after losing the ball, as they sprung into a counter-press. Deco and Van Bommel were triggers for the press, so to counter this, he wanted his team to have good depth and width to escape the press and secure possession. He also saw the opportunity, as if they bypassed the first line of pressure, the defense would be exposed, and they could attack them as the fullbacks would be far out of position. When Barca had their deep defensive shape, Chelsea could take advantage of this. Barca used a medium to high block with zonal marking, with Eto'o, Deco and Van Bommel crucial to controlling the team's decisions of when to press. In their own third, if Chelsea spread their players out to make the pitch big when building up, Barca wouldn't press and instead let Chelsea play out through this first phase. But in the middle third, Eto'o and Deco were identified as the dangers, as they had the instinct to spot the smallest error to trigger the entire team to start pressing much higher up the pitch. Alternatively, as Barca had a high line, he spotted the potential to immediately go long and flick the ball into the space. A major area he would look to take advantage of was the defensive positioning of Ronaldinho. He tended to be attracted to the ball, leaving space on the outside. So if they got the ball wide to their fullback, they could create a 2 versus 1 in the wide areas. And more importantly, if Deco moved wide to cover from here, Chelsea would now have a 3 versus 2 advantage in the all-important central area. Although generally, Deco and Van Bommel's pressing made it difficult to play in this central area, quick possession would be key to avoid the press. And he wanted his centre forward to often drop deep, because Puyol was an aggressive marker and would be drawn out of position, with Edmilson looking to cover his position. And when Edmilson was in this space, Mourinho would look to attack him and exploit the situation. And generally, he saw Puyol's aggressiveness as an area to exploit, as even in settled situations, Puyol always pushed high up to play men offside. But the backline was often disorganized, so this scenario could often be taken advantage of. But how about when Barca won the ball and looked to counterattack? He noted that in the previous year, after winning the ball, Barca wanted to start a period of possession. But that was different now, as they looked to kill their opponents on the transition. If they weren't pressured, they looked to be vertical, immediately going to Messi or Ronaldinho through Deco, and they would look to exploit the spaces in the defense. If the opposition defenses tried to play an offside line, Eto'o was great at breaking this and getting 1 versus 1 with the keeper. However, if Barcelona were pressured when they tried to counter-attack, their counter was quite poor, as Puyol, Marquez, Oliger and Edmilson would tend to give the ball away, gifting the opponents possession. Lastly, Mourinho's other observations were interesting. He noted that Marquez and Van Bommel would be out of the second leg if booked, and that Juli was a doubt for the game altogether. But he was scathing of Barcelona's tendency to play act, noting that they had 11 penalties awarded that season and 4 opponents sent off. This was because they tended to constantly simulate and target opponents who had already been booked, whilst also pressuring the referees. On the other hand, Chelsea could look to target Puyol as he was hot-headed and they could look to get him booked. He also believed that any substitutions in the first leg wouldn't mean a change in the system, but rather just a reshuffling of which players would occupy what area of the pitch. A lot more was covered in the scout report, including assessment of set-piece strengths and weaknesses, as well as looks at each individual player in the Barcelona team. If you want to have a look at these elements, the source material is linked in the video description. If you enjoyed this video, a like and a subscribe would go a long way. Comment down below what kind of videos you'd like to see going forward. Don't forget to check out the videos linked at the end of this one.